Hello and welcome to Colin Bradley Artcast. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley.
Hi, Dad. Happy New Year.
And to you, Steve, and all our members, it's going to be a very interesting year this year, not necessarily for us, although it's always interesting for us, but as far as the political and the other media particularly are going to be very interesting to see how it all turns out this year. There's a lot going on, and I'm not going to go into it. Mustn't get political, must we? No.
This
But
isn't a political podcast, but
not at all. No. But it's going to be very interesting to see how it all turns out. But we're going to stay as we are, producing artwork as we do.
yeah, excellent. So, how has your New Year started, Dad? I know we've got a
The new
picture
year,
about today.
well, quite interestingly, actually, we've made a few decisions which I think we can talk about later on, which are going to work out well for us and our members. A couple of new projects. One I've finished, but we're going to show a bit of that today. And the what I find, I'll talk about it when we look at the picture actually. So perhaps I'll leave it to then before I make my comments. But things are beginning to develop, and quite exciting, I think. So yes, it's very good. The prospects are good.
Good. Excellent stuff. Excellent. So, the things we want to talk about today, we've had a couple of interesting emails and posts that we'll talk about. And the first one is an email that came from one of our students, Christian. And Christian has done some research into the history of pastel pencils and specifically manufacturers, which he felt was really interesting that we might be interested in reading about, and it is. So I wanted to share that on the podcast because it was a few interesting facts in there that I'm going to bring up that people might not realize. Because we've talked about your history with the pastel pencils, Dad, and how you came across them, and they were they were when you started an unknown medium. Not many people had used them and knew how to use them, and now they've become more mainstream and they're a lot more popular now. But you discovered them in the 80s in an art shop, and that was the Swan Stabilo brand of Carbothello pastel pencils. And people might not realize actually how long pastel pencils have been around for. Just goes to show how long they were unpopular for potentially. But it starts way back with another brand that are still going today, the General brand, which I know you use the General white charcoal pencil
Mm-hmm.
as a really good highlighter, really bright pigment. But the General's multi-chalk pastels were started manufacturing in the US, and that started in 1926. So really,
Amazing.
nearly 100 years, they've been going now. It's absolutely amazing. So that was fascinating. And then Christian found out that the Swan Stabilo brand actually started with their original Carbothello 80 pastel pencil set, colored charcoal pencils, in 1956, which is still, a good nearly 30 years before you found them. And that was the original 80 set, which explains, as we've talked about over the years, how there are colours that they discontinued. And Christian found out that that happened in 1991, 1992. They actually reduced their range down to 60, and that's the 60 range that we have today. And then, of course, there are other brands like Conti, which was started in the 1960s. And then a lot of them came in the sort of the 90s. Everyone will know Faber-Castell, your experience with Faber-Castell, starting their own range of pastel pencils, which you helped them launch in the 90s. Derwent also came along in 1994. It feels like the 90s was a real time for people to branch off. I don't know if other people left Stabilo and just went off and created their own brands of pastel pencils, but it really felt like that's the year. Those are the years that it really took off. Isn't it interesting?
I absolutely, and I'm very privileged really to have been instigating the popularity of the pastel pencil before I came along. I didn't know anything about them, as you know from my story. I just came across them and thought, oh, these are useful. And I use them because I wasn't told how to use them. I wasn't told how not to use them, probably more to the point. So I just did my own thing. And that's developed now into well, what we've got today, and everyone else that we see on the internet, particularly, are using them in the same way. And
Yeah.
I'm very honoured, really, to have actually been there at the beginning of it all
Mm.
and popularising it.
It goes to show how popular they were in the 90s. Creta Color came along in the 90s. I don't know if I said that. Um, and I actually don't know how to say this brand, but it's KOH, Koh I Nor. They are another popular brand. I know a lot of people have used those. They were sort of originally introduced under a different brand in the 90s as well.
Mm.
And then Caran d'Ache, of course, came along in 2012, the most sort of recent launch of pastel pencils that we use. And I just thought that's interesting how they all sort of took off in that era. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, go on. Sorry, you were going to say
I
something?
was just going to say, just out of interest, this is one of the original Carpatella pencils.
Ah, you still got one.
I've got two, in fact. Uh, I don't use them other than my own work. I use them for my own work, but I won't use them because this particular one is a very unique colour. It's a very deep red, something that we're lacking on all the ranges I've got. I haven't got anything quite like that. I have to use a little bit of black with the normal reds just to get that effect. But that was one of the original. That was one of the original 80 set. I was very upset when they knocked that on the head, that one, and there's got another one which is lighter red than that.
Mm.
That's all I've got of left of those. But it's just interesting, isn't it? And that goes way back probably to 1956. Didn't have any, Carbothello now have got the, let's say, get you one out. I've got the end on there, and that's been like that for a long time. This was the original that didn't, and it had a number. The number on the end, and it's 70. Now, you won't find that today. That's long gone. But it still works. Interesting enough, the wonderful thing about that is the pastel there today is as good as it was when it was first made. So
Goes to show the
it
longevity of the medium itself, doesn't it? Yeah.
absolutely. I was going to test it out for you if I could find some paper to do it on. No, you carry on. Oh, yes, I can. No, I can't. No, I can't. No, I can't. I haven't got any local. I didn't think about that. It's only a spur of the moment. I thought I'd prove it to you.
Oh,
But
we
no,
believe
that's
we
oh,
believe it.
good,
It looks
good.
it looks it looks good. It looks in good quality condition. Um, yeah. So thank you, Christian, for taking the time to do research, all of that. There is a bit more information. I'll try and get it published on our website. So because even then, Christian has updated since then, sent me some more information specifically about which brands are discontinued, which ones are co-manufactured and stuff. It's really quite interesting. So thank you, Christian, for taking the time to do that. The next topic to talk about is about pastel papers, because we see a lot of fantastic work that's posted on our Facebook group. And if you're not currently a member of our Facebook group, please go onto Facebook and search for the Colin Bradley School of Art students and do request to join. It's free to join for anyone that is taking our classes and is familiar with Dad's work. But one of the pictures caught our attention, and it felt like it was a good point to make. Do you want to talk about this, Dad?
Yes, that's the sunset. Yes, I can't remember the lady's name. Anyway, it was, and we've had a couple recently that have used the canson mi-teines paper. And I think when you're starting out, you just get pastel paper and you try it. And when you use the mi-teines paper, you get little pimples in it. And I'm sure a lot of our members would have understood this. and you can't actually fill that up. So at the end of the day, when it doesn't matter how much pastel pencil you put on and you apply, you're still going to get those little pimples, and it's off-putting, to be honest. And so I've always felt shy of it. I never liked it from the beginning because of that reason. So a lot of people who are starting out with pastels could well pick it up and say, oh, this is pastel paper, and it says pastel paper, or it says pastel paper. And but I think originally it was probably designed for soft pastel. Soft pastel you fill up, and you wouldn't have the same problem. But pastel pencils you do.
So soft
So
pastel
I
can
would,
cover soft pastel can cover more of a like a heavier toothed paper, textured paper. So it's just the texture of the soft pastel can just smooth it all over.
well, it's very noticeable though. When you see it, you'll see what we're talking about. And we've had people say, I've tried really hard to fill it up, put more pastel on, and it hasn't been able to. It hasn't worked with the pastel pencil, and it's a shame because you spend all that time doing it, especially if you're starting out. You sort of, oh, these pencils are no good, and it's not the pencil, I'm afraid. It's the paper. So the ombre or the pastel matte paper that we use is ideal, and you don't get that. Used
Yeah.
to get it with to a certain extent. We used to get it with the ombre. I used to use that tooth for it, but it's a line rather than a pimple. And I used to use it, and some of my early pictures you'll see where I use it for brickwork and other things. But it does fill up, especially if you're using it in the sky, for instance. You can fill up the pastel quite easily with the blues and the whites and the other colours you put on. So that was my paper for a very, very long time. I've since moved over to pastel matte, which I think is better, but it's harder to use because you've got to fill it up. You know, you have got to fill that up. You can't just leave that because it doesn't work. But and that's my preferred paper at the moment.
Mm.
So anyway, I thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, I mean, it must be, you know, heartbreaking if you're starting out to not get those results that you're seeing and think, what am I doing wrong? And it's actually not you at all. It's the type of paper. And I do appreciate, like you said, it can be confusing. You go out, you look for a pastel paper. They all say pastel paper. You think, well, what's the differences, you know? So I suppose this is for anyone else that's sort of starting out or is wondering the same thing. You know, why that might be happening and why that tooth is so prominent. So probably best if you fancy a play with soft pastels and you've got that paper, give it a try on that paper, see if you can fill it up, you know, just try to use it if you can.
The
Um,
only problem with that is you can't get the same detail with soft pastel. You just can't do it, not in the same way. I mean, a very experienced artist can do it, but you've got to be really, really good at what you do to be able to produce good results. Well, as we know, the pastel pencil on the right kind of paper, the first results, and we've had a couple recently, this is my first picture and I'm pretty pleased with it. They say that because they say, well, I can do better, and of course they can practice. So from the beginning, right from the word go, you can get results
mm,
with the pastel pencil, but you can't do that with soft pastel. It's
mm.
not possible.
But speaking of experienced artists, let's talk about you and your new
Oh
work
yeah,
you've
oh,
done.
right.
So let's show a little bit because you started and I know you've actually finished it, but we're going to show the beginning stage of this picture. So let me just pull that up on screen. Here we go. See if that comes up for everyone. This
Mm.
is a gorgeous cat. I think you may have mentioned a cat maybe in your last episode. I can't remember.
I
Um,
did. Yes, I said that was my next project. I said,
yeah, and really, this is gorgeous cat. The coloring is just beautiful. Is that why you chose to do this one?
absolutely. I loved it. I love there's two or three things here. The eye, particularly. Now, I've improved, that's the wrong word to use. I've enhanced the eyes because on this, they look gorgeous, don't they, when you look at it like that? But these eyes, when you see it, probably next week or the next time we do a podcast, we'll pull it up. And they are stunning. So that was my first thing. I saw the eyes. I thought, they're lovely eyes. I can do something with them, and I have. And then you've got the bib, just under the chin. You've got that bib where the fur comes out. It almost sort of three-dimensional comes out. And I thought, that's going to be a challenge. And the way it's tucked its paws. I just love the pose and the inquisitive look of the cat. They've got a regal look, haven't they, cats? And I'm sure cat lovers will agree with me on that. So what I'd done, I started the ball rolling on this, and I thought, well, it'd be a good idea just to show the photographic reference, which is a good reference there, and then put alongside it my beginning. Now, when you look at that, you think, it's all right, but, well, when you see the finished picture, you'll see how good it is. Now, I did mention to you right from the beginning that I got some new ideas. It has developed. And what it is, you can just about see it on my example there. You can see a smoothness to the fur. Now, if you look at the fur on the animal, you can see the same thing. You've got that kind of, what can you say? It's not individual hairs. You've got a softness. That's the word, a softness. And I've been, I think over the last few pictures, I've been developing this, and this one I've developed it even further. And as I say, when you see the finish, you'll really appreciate that. But it's a smoothness which I wouldn't have thought possible, to be honest. And it's all to do with the application, obviously, not too much colour. Although you look at the picture, you think there's a lot of colour in that. Well, there is, but you don't overdo the colour. Particularly if you look at on my picture there, just under the ear, you've got just before you get to the light area just on top of the eye, that area there, just look at that for the moment. Now, how would you produce that picture? How would you produce the colour? If you look at the reference picture that I was looking at, you can see the same colour, can't you? It looks actually the same. And I thought, well, how am I going to do that? And I've done something I wouldn't have done normally. Now, I started with an ivory. You can almost see that, actually, when I'm mentioning it, that the ivory, even on the very dark fur, I put ivory underneath.
Oh.
Then I put the grey on, and I was using 233 grey. Then I used a little of 182 from my memory, which is in the ochre section of the animal. That went in. And then on top of that, I put the 175, which is black. Not black, it's a very, very dark sepia colour. And that went on top of that. And then you use the colour shaper, and that produced that effect. Now, the whole of the cat, the rest of the cat that you can see there with the dark colour on it, I use the same principle. Now, I would never have dreamed of using ivory under there. And probably people that have seen my work and think, you haven't done that before, Colin. Well, I haven't. But I had to do it to get that tone of the animal, that lovely, soft, very dark colour. And this is what attracted me really to it. And I didn't think to start off with I was going to be able to produce it, but I have. And of course, when you look at the contrast between that dark area and the ivory, whitey look that surrounds the eye, you can see how it's compatible. It works together. Not so much on my reference picture because I've still got work to do on that. Not the reference, my actual picture. But when you see the finished picture, you'll see that comes out even more. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, really interesting. I didn't know that you'd actually sort of varied up your style and technique application for this one. That's really interesting. Um, we'll show the finished picture next week, and that'll probably be more interesting because we can talk a little bit more about other
Mm,
sections and how you carried on that application through and the differences that
mm.
it made. And of course, I want to see those eyes done as well and see what they look like because that's
The other thing, can I just point out one thing? If you look at the background, how awful that background is on the picture. Between now and when we next do podcast, people start thinking, how are you going to, what colour are you going to do, Colin? And to be honest, I didn't know at this stage. I had no idea what colour I was going to use. So it's interesting, isn't it? You know, given food for thought.
yeah, lovely stuff. Lovely, excellent. Um, I know you finished this one, but you've got another one you've started, have you? Or you're thinking of?
Well, I've got a few ideas at the moment. I haven't what I'm looked at the moment. We've done a demonstration, and I think that's not been published yet, has it? That demonstration, no, but it will be because somebody asked me how I would tackle fur on a poodle or a labradoodle, and so I've done a demonstration on that to show, and so I did that. And I'm going to set up a few more dems. The idea is that I want to see what people think of it. In other words, if you've got a particular, like I have with this particular cat, you think, well, how do you get that colour, Colin? Well, I can do a quick demonstration and show them how I get that colour. And I'm sure that there are people out there, or members out there, or people watching this thing. Oh, I'd love to get that colour, but I can't. I don't understand which one it is or which one I should use. This is the kind of thing that perhaps they could let us know if they'd would like me to do a demonstration on it. I know
Yeah,
these demos have been quite popular in the past.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good idea. Good idea. We'll let everyone know when that Labradoodle fur curly hair is up on the website or up on YouTube. We'll share that, and hopefully, yeah, you'll find that interesting. I think that when it's impossible to people say to us, can you do this picture for me? And and it's a big commitment to do an entire picture. But if people are trying to do a commission or a particular picture that they really want to do, we can help with those techniques, a couple of those techniques behind the things that you might be thinking, oh, how do I do that? We always say that there's a lot of resource on the website. There's a lot of classes, 500 odd classes that you can scan through and find similar fur, similar hair, and similar colors and tones. I think we've covered surely all of them at this point, but there is a lot of resource there that I know that people can dive straight into and find things that will help them. But, like with a Labradoodle, I don't think you've done a specific Labradoodle before. So, doing a bit of fur and showing how to do that, filming that, it doesn't take too long. And if it helps other people as well out there that want to do other dogs that are similar, then we're all for it. So, yeah, if you have any requests or anything, let us know. Dad may do it, do a couple, and we'll see what everyone thinks of that. And of course, next week we will discuss this finished cat picture and perhaps show off another couple of demonstrations. Great stuff. Well, thank you, Dad. This has been very insightful. Thank you, Christian. Thank you for the people on our Facebook group. If anyone's interested, as I say, go to Facebook, join for free. And if everyone wants to do any of our classes, then go to colinbradleyart.com and you'll find those 500. I think we're nearly at 550 classes now on there. So great stuff. Okay, we'll leave it there for this week. So thank you everyone for watching and for listening. I'm Stephen Bradley.
And I'm Colin Bradley. Enjoy
Enjoy
your week.